off.
And how you can learn more about the candidates.
Update on the death of a Mamaroneck man and how you can help his daughter.
Who do you think owns the seafloor?
Mamaroneck teachers put on their shirts.
And where you might find the Great Pumpkin. Those stories and more coming up on this edition of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. Welcome to this edition of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. I'm Mike Witsch.
And I'm Maura Carlin. Our top story. It's officially fall, so it's time to talk about elections and pumpkins. We'll get to the pumpkins later. Both local Democrats and Republicans kicked off their fall season with events. Republicans held a party at the Mamaroneck Elks Club with their candidates. Mamaroneck Town Supervisor Valerie O'Keefe is running for re-election against Town Councilman Democrat Ernie Odierna. Don March again is challenging incumbent Democrat Judy Myers for county legislator, and Village of Mamaroneck Mayor Phil Trifoletti is up for re-election, along with his appointed trustee Tony Fava. They face Democratic challengers Kathy Savold, a former trustee herself, and Randy Rabinowitz. A fundraiser for Odierna's run for town supervisor drew local Democrats from local to state to national office, including Representative Nita Lowy. 12-year town councilwoman Phyllis Whitner is running unopposed, as is the recently appointed Councilman David Fishman. We'll, of course, keep you posted on the elections and even hope to have the candidates in to talk.
Voters in Mamaroneck Town and Village will go to the polls on Tuesday, November the 6th. Candidates are now making their best case to be elected or re-elected. The League of Women Voters will sponsor a candidates forum on October 23rd in Mamaroneck's Town Center, starting at 7 p.m. You can even propose questions, but they must be received before the forum begins. LMC-TV, our public access station, will also provide opportunities for candidates to speak on the issues. Each candidate has been offered 2 half-hour programs called Meet the Candidates. These shows are videotaped, then cablecast on channels 75, 76, and 77. New this year, the shows are available for viewing on the internet. Go to the LMC-TV website and click on Fall 2007 Elections to see the shows in their entirety. LMC-TV Executive Director Eric Lewis credits Jessica Pozzuoli, the station's Associate Director, for the webcast. Now, he says, even those without cable TV service can be informed by LMC-TV, our expanded community connection, as we so often say. The schedule for Meet the Candidates on channels 75, 76, and 77 is also posted on the website. And that site, in case you don't know, is www.lmc-tv.org. You can also call and find out when the shows will play, and the phone number is 381-0131.
Mamaroneck police make no further comment in the pending investigation into the murder of Steve Spano, who was found stabbed to death on September 17th, including refusing to comment about circulating rumors regarding Spina's possible relationships with women other than his longtime girlfriend, Tammy Acevedo. In the meantime, friends and family of Spina are planning to take care of his daughter, Skylar, establishing a fund to ensure her education. Contributions to the fund may be made by check payable to Skylar Spina, care of Lisa Padilla, Esquire, and sent to 560 White Plains Road, Suite 530, Tarrytown, New York, 10591.
Just who owns land under the sea? The Journal News reported last week that question is at the center of an unusual legal battle in the Orienta section of Mamaroneck Village. That's where former Representative Richard Ottinger and his wife June hope to soon move into a sprawling new house over the objections of a vocal group of neighbors. The Ottingers, says the story, were able to build their dream retirement home only after convincing village officials that they owned about 2,600 square feet of underwater land that extends beyond the seawall in their backyard and into Mamaroneck Harbor. But for 3 years, their neighbors have called the house too big for the lot it sits on, arguing that the Ottingers' property ends closer to the seawall. They finally took legal action against the village, the county, the state, as well as the Ottingers. The newspaper reports that New York State has now filed a cross-claim siding with the neighbors, contending that the state, not the Ottingers, owns the underwater land. Whether the courts will uphold the state's claim remains to be seen. For 25 years, we've been paying taxes on this land, June Ottinger told a reporter. She's a former village trustee and a former chairwoman of the village's Harbor and Coastal Zone Management Commission. That could not be confirmed by Robert Yometer, assistant village manager for the Mamaroneck Village, because he told the newspaper there is still a debate going on. Without the underwater land in the equation, the Ottingers' new house would be too big to meet the village zoning code. At least one disgruntled neighbor says politics played a part. Richard Ottinger says ridiculous, that he's been treated like any other citizen. The couple have been living in an apartment for the past 3 years. But before they can move into their waterfront home, they will need to spend more time and more money rebuilding their foundation walls, which were not built to absorb the pressure of crashing waves and don't meet Federal Emergency Management Agency's floodplain guidelines. Depending on how the neighbors' legal fight plays out, the Ottingers may have even more work to do. They could be forced to apply for a variance and go through an arduous public hearing process. Some neighbors still say they want the Ottingers' house torn down.
Floodwaters may have receded for now, but preventing floods is very much on the agenda of local officials. County Legislator Judy Myers came in to update us.
After the terrible flooding of April 15th, especially in this area, which we all know we were devastated here in Mamaroneck and up and down the Sound Shore, there were significant flooding problems. The County Executive Spano, put together a flood action task force, and I was named to the task force along with the supervisor from the town of Mamaroneck, the mayor from the city of Rye, and a number of professionals and commissioners from different departments to look into ways in which money can be leveraged to really attack the problem from a larger basis, from almost a regional basis. And
instead of
municipality by municipality. Water doesn't know from municipalities. It doesn't stop at one and say, oh, I'm not going to go there. It flows. And what we're looking at is we're looking at Westchester County in terms of its watersheds. And we are here on this map. We're in the lower Long Island Sound
how is we're looking
watershed.
at this orange part of the map, yellowish orange. How is the watershed determined that this is the area?
It's topographical. It's the way the water flows. As it flows down, literally Rye, the village of Mamaroneck, Larchmont, we are the end of the drain here. We are the drain, and the water has to get to the Long Island Sound. And so what we're hoping to see, and we will know in another month and a half when the county executive releases his budget to the Board of Legislators to play with and eventually approve, make some changes, whatever. But we are hoping to see the inclusion of approximately $50 million in capital capital funds to be spent on flooding mitigation projects.
In this region or in the
entire county. And this would be conceivably over a 5-year period. What we are developing is a system through which municipalities can apply for grant money to tackle flood mitigation projects.
And does that mean each municipality has to come up with its own idea of what needs to be done?
Yes. Yes. Okay. And the municipalities are working on this as we speak. Rye City is working on a project looking at a large body of water that's actually in Rye Brook that could be potentially used as a detention basin where you could lower it, let the water out before a storm, dam it up, and then let the water rise up in the pond, in the body of water. The village of Mamaroneck has engaged a consultant. They're looking at the Mamaroneck River, and especially where it joins with the Sheldrake.
Right.
Town of Mamaroneck is looking at the Sheldrake, And the village of Larchmont and the town of Mamaroneck, I believe, are looking at the whole Pine Brook area.
Right.
With a consultant, again, looking to see what are the major fixes. And when I say fix, of course, there is no fix. We've done a lot of this to ourselves. Obviously, we've paved over an awful lot of open land that had previously been used to filter water through, stormwater through.
Before we get to that, let me just ask you, is the task force coming up with ideas, or is it just the municipalities that come up with the ideas of how to mitigate?
Both.
Both.
The task force right now is looking at the ways in which the municipalities can be selected for the grant money. Very similar to the county's legacy program, through which municipalities can apply for grant money for athletic fields,
Right.
similar to Flint Park.
So what can we do, as individuals?
As individuals, there's a
Because
lot
I know that,
we can do.
that there are things we
Yes.
can do. Let's talk about
And
that. Oh, we have a
that's
couple of
the
minutes.
other side of the coin here. There are large projects and there are small projects. There are projects that each and every homeowner can do. The one that I've been touting the most, because I see this just talking to residents, is the fact that we all need to know about the permits that are required for doing things on our property, many of which are in place with to basically battle stormwater and to control stormwater and stormwater runoff, to consult anytime you're doing work on your property, consult your building department, either in the village or the two villages or the town, and find out what's required in the way of permitting. In a lot of cases, there are, in the town of Mamaroneck, for instance, if you pave over more than 100 square feet and make it impervious so that water can't flow directly through it, then you need to put in another dry well in your property. So there are a lot of regulations that are in effect, but people need to find out about them. They need to ask their contractor about it, make sure their contractor knows what the permits are that are required, because they are meant to help with stormwater. Simple things like, do you need an asphalt driveway, or could you have a gravel driveway? Gravel will let the water seep through.
Okay.
It won't run off as it does with asphalt.
There go the basketball courts.
Yes, but you can go up to your local school and play some basketball out on the playground, perhaps. Everything is give and take,
Right.
and you do have to make some compromises. But in the interest of getting all of this water into the ground where it belongs and back into the Long Island Sound as opposed to into our homes, then we do have to take some of these things into consideration.
I'm going to ask you two more quick questions about this. Has there been any consideration of the additional cost to individuals to do this? I mean, to get a contractor to spend the extra time going to the town is going to cost you, but there, and the permitting, things that people wouldn't think of getting
Well,
permits
except they
for.
are the law. And so
But
if you
there
do
are also
want... if
bonds required.
Right, and you do need building permits, and you need to have you need to make the building department aware of what you're doing.
Even just paving a driveway or repaving a driveway?
Paving a driveway, I'm not sure of. I have no idea.
I don't-
But it's a good idea to go and ask, especially if you're paving a driveway that had been pervious, that had been gravel, and let's say you've decided to take that up, then you do need to go in. Because again, you're going to you're making it so water can't get through where it needs to, and the water's going to go somewhere, and that's where the town or the village needs to be involved.
And lastly, has anyone looked at or thought about whether these flood problems are having any effect on real estate values here?
I am not a realtor. I have not heard. I think certainly we are on the map in terms of, the amount of press coverage that
And not
we
in a
all
good
got.
way.
No, I mean, it was very clear. I know it was clear all over New York State where we were having the floods in April.
Right.
Does it impact our real estate value? I have no idea. I would hope not. I would think not. We are still a very desirable place to live. You can't beat the commute.
Right.
And these are terrific communities.
These aren't discussions that were coming up. That's really what
Have not heard anything about value. No.
Well, we could talk about this, for hours, but unfortunately we don't have it. So I hope you'll come back
I
and talk
will,
to us some more.
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Teachers in the Mamaroneck schools are working without a contract since their old one expired on June 30th. According to a story published late last month in the Globe, the high school's student newspaper, the teachers are frustrated by what they call the slow progress of negotiations. On September 19th, teachers wore T-shirts with the message, "Teaching Excellence," and we understand they're going to wear them each Wednesday. A show of solidarity with the teacher negotiators, explained one teacher to the student reporter who asked about the shirts. School Board President Amy Levere told the Globe that progress has been slow because the district's negotiators include 2 new assistant superintendents and because of complications with the budget. She said both sides are doing the best they can, that the board is negotiating in good faith, and that both sides have a mutual interest in getting negotiations completed as soon as possible. Neither side gave too many details about what's on the table. For the teachers, there are issues over health care, accountability, and working hours. Board President Levere told the Globe that there are a lot of items to be negotiated this time around. Both sides did agree that the defeat of the first school budget back in May affected the negotiations. Our thanks to Globe Managing Editor Ben Cruikshank for this story. We'll keep you posted on future developments. By the way, I should mention that I was a teacher in the Mamaroneck schools, retired in 2002. Glenna Gray meets 2 people raising funds for a local hospital.
Hello, Judy.
Hi, Glenna. How are you?
Hello, John.
Hello.
Hello, Mia. And how are you, Mia? Oh, you're not speaking today. Who is Mia?
Mia is a scarecrow. Mia is one of the stars of the Scarecrow Festival, which is taking place 2 Sundays from now on October 14th.
Where?
It's on Mamaroneck Road in Scarsdale, near the border of Scarsdale and Mamaroneck. The exact address is 307 Mamaroneck Road. It's right near the Scarsdale swimming pool. It's at the kids' base.
In the parking lot.
In the
Yes.
parking lot.
Yes.
So how did Mia get to become a scarecrow?
You mean, how did it all start?
How did she was just old clothes before?
She was old clothes
How did she
before.
get to become a scarecrow?
Well, a cousin of mine, Brenda Ostreich, and I were in Pennsylvania at a wedding, and we drove past a scarecrow festival, and at that point they were just putting the neonatal unit into White Plains Hospital, and we thought it would be a perfect fit. It's a very family-oriented event.
Oh, so it's a fundraiser.
It is a fundraiser. It's a modest fundraiser. We only charge $35 for a family of 5 to come and make the scarecrow. We supply everything. We supply the straw, the clothing, all the decorative fabric, the hats, the scarves. And we also have volunteers who go among the people who are making scarecrows and make sure that they know what they're doing. The twine is an integral part of it. How to
children
construct
make it and adults.
Absolutely.
And for $35, anyone in the family or everyone in the family can make a scarecrow.
That's right. Now,
Absolutely.
this has been going on for 9 years.
9 years.
And last year, for example, we had more than 1,000 people
Wonderful.
building more than 300, close to 400 scarecrows.
And they come in different sizes.
They come in different sizes. We provide the jeans, we provide the shirts, the hats, and other decorative materials. They build their scarecrows, and each child takes away a scarecrow, giving it a name that gets put on a birth certificate, and bringing it home as the child's new child.
Wonderful, wonderful. And how is the money used, the funds that you raise?
The funds for the past the funds always go to something child-oriented at White Plains Hospital. And for the past 2 years, we have been funding the pediatric waiting room that will be part of the new emergency room at the hospital. It will open, I believe, about a year from now.
A pediatric emergency room at White Plains Hospital will benefit from your fundraiser on October 14th, a Sunday.
Exactly.
Well, I look forward to see this event. I can make one my size?
Absolutely.
Yes, you can.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I would say the majority of our clothing is adult size, but we do have a variety of
Fine,
sizes.
wonderful. And you live in Mamaroneck and you live in Scarsdale.
That's
So
correct.
it's a community event to help the White Plains Hospital. Well, thank
Absolutely.
you for
Exactly.
coming in.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Wish you success. And
Mia.
Mia, don't fall away now.
Be a
See you,
good
Mia.
girl.
Amy Schachtel covers another charity story about Project Linus.
Welcome to Quilt Cottage at 414 Mamaroneck Avenue. Let's go inside and see all the wonderful things that Nancy has. And here we are in Quilt Cottage, and I see a beautiful quilt. And I'd like to introduce Nancy Rosenberger, the owner and creator of Quilt Cottage. Nancy, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I want to find out more about what inspired you to open this store.
Basically, I've been sewing since I was 5 years old, and I worked in the textile industry for over 20 years, and it was always a dream to open up a store, and it just seemed like the right time in my life to make the change.
And what brought you to the community of Mamaroneck?
I'm a resident here for over 12 years, and it just seemed like a natural place for me to open up the store.
Well, let's go look at more things here. And all these beautiful ribbons, but I notice there's a buckle on this one.
We sell a lot of ribbons, and one of the main end uses is that people make ribbons, belts out of them. So we have a lot of buckles, we have ribbons, and they're very economical to make them by hand versus purchasing them.
And I understand that you have classes here where you can teach people how to do exactly that.
Yes, we do. We have a lot of classes. We do mostly evening classes, and we teach sewing, quilting, knitting, some novelty things like making bags, floor quilts.
So now, so far, I know that we can make quilts. I've seen beautiful yarns for making sweaters, belts, and you have experts here that show you how to do it.
Yes, we do. We have different teachers for each area, and we bring in specialty teachers for specific things too at times.
Nancy, my eye is going all around the store. There's somewhere else I want to look. Come with me. Well, one
This
of
is
the
time.
things you were telling me about
Okay.
was that you have the local 7th graders from the elementary schools come here. How did that all come to pass?
I just recently opened, and during the Historic Day Fair, 2 of the home economics or career teachers came in, and we worked out a program where the 7th graders would come here to work on their home and career projects, which is either an apron or a locker organizer. So in turn, then I had to buy 7th grade fabric.
And now I'd like to introduce Ellen.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much for being here. I know that you're here all the time, but you made a special visit to see us today. Ellen, I've been finding out about these floor quilts. This is new to me, and I understand you've written a book.
Well, I have, because it's not only new to you, it's new to everybody. It's a process that I created to have beautiful textiles on the floor without fear of dogs, accidents, and puppies' growing pains.
Okay, in other words, they're easy to live with.
Very easy to live with, very easy to make, non-threatening. It's a way to play with fabric and have no sewing skills whatsoever.
And you've written a book about this.
Yes, I have. I wrote a book as a result of the classes that I teach here.
And can you please show us the cover of this here?
yes.
Okay.
This is only the cover, but the book should be available within the next week or so.
I understand that within that time, there's going to be a book signing here. When does that take place?
Well, very happily, it's going to be on Saturday, the 6th of October from 10 to 2.
I understand that you have a website that people can go to find out when classes are, special events coming up. What is that site?
It's www.quiltcottage.net, and it then has the classes. It talks about our book signing or any new events that are coming up, and it would also have any our summer camp schedules. One thing that's been very interesting for me is there's church groups, there's synagogues, there's the Girl Scouts, there's mentoring programs who have almost had a need to produce something, create something, either for a charity or for a donation. And we've been able to pull this together for people and come up with products for them where they could either make quilts or blankets or something that they could do as a group and then, again, donate or raffle off, where it's been very beneficial for all the people involved, for myself and the community groups.
Are you looking for the great pumpkin? Charlie Brown, Mildraide Lazare, tells where to shop locally for a good cause.
Well, it's that time of the year. The 7th annual Pumpkin Patch is here. This event will take place October 2nd through October 31st, weekdays from 12:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. and on weekends from 9:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Stop by on Saturday, October 13th for our famous bake sale from 12:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. Volunteers are welcome and needed. This year's event is a collaborative effort from Mamaroneck's St. Thomas Church, Larchmont's St. John's, New Rochelle's Trinity, St. Paul's, and Harrison's All Saints Church. All proceeds are donated to the outreach program of these churches, which focuses on local charities. For more information, log on to www.stthomasmmrk.org. The Pumpkin Patch is not only a community tradition, but also one of the important ways for the community to get to know one another. Not to mention, it is a lot of fun. It's a family and community affair. Come by and see what all the excitement is about. For Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News, I'm Mildraide Lazare.
Glenna Gray is here with a view from the Real Estate Corner.
Welcome to the Real Estate Corner. These are the houses available on the multiple listing service. For single-family houses, there are 105 available from $438,000 to $1,100,000. Condominiums, there are only 31 available from $219,000 to $2,200,000. Co-ops, there are 44, starting at $129,000 to $485,000. Multiple families houses this week are running from $489,000 to $1,430,000. Do you have a house for sale, or are you planning to list your house? Here are a few hints to help you sell your house. Remember, you are selling a house, not your home. First impressions are important. The lawn and hedges and trees should be trimmed. The driveway should be swept. Everything should look clean and neat. The doorknobs should be on firmly. Inside, open the drapes so that the sunshine will come through clean windows and windowsills. Fix all loose knobs and cabinet pulls. Squeaky doors. Fix leaky faucets. Remove all clutter. Look at your house from across the street. More hints next week.
And that's it for this week's edition of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News.
If you'd like to see this news show again, you can. It's on every weekday night at 7 p.m. We record one show each week, and it's replayed on this channel, LMC-TV, channel 75.
Or if you want to request to see it, you can. Call LMC-TV during the week at 381-2002, extension 202, and ask to see the news show. They'll try to put it on a time that's convenient for you to watch.
And this reminder, our news program is an all-volunteer effort, and we could sure use a few more volunteers, maybe behind the scenes or as a reporter, or perhaps you'd like to shoot some video. Whatever the case, we need you.
In short, if you want to help us put this program on, we've got something for you to do. Stop by some Thursday night in the LMC TV studios and see how we do what we do.
And if you're a regular viewer, you know where we are. We're in the Mamaroneck High School, the Palmer Avenue side, just up the stairs across from the landmark Walter's hot dog stand. We get things started around 7 p.m. and we'd love to see you.
It's now easier than ever to reach the news show. Of course, you can write to us at the address on your screen, but we also have an email link on the LMC TV website. You can email story ideas, pictures, or request a phone call, and of course, you can volunteer. Just go to www.lmc-tv.org. Scroll down on the homepage until you see Contact the News Show. It's that simple, so let us hear from you.
Thanks again for watching Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. I'm Mike Witch.
And I'm Maura Carlin. We'll see you next week. It's Westchester Day School 2, Village of Mamaroneck 0.
Zito project get the go-ahead in Larchmont.
The proposed county budget is out.
And the county airport has growing pains.
Learn what's going on at Mamaroneck High School.
And those stories and more coming up on this edition of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. Hello and welcome to Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. I'm Mike Witch.
And I'm Maura Carlin. Our top story. Westchester Day School wins again in court in its effort to expand its facilities. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed the lower court decision that the Village of Mamaroneck Zoning Board violated a federal land use law that protects against religious discrimination. The appeals court also ordered the zoning board to issue the special zoning permit to the day school. The village can appeal the decision to the United States Supreme Court, and if accepted, it would be the first time the High Court heard a dispute like this. We were unable to reach Village Mayor Phil Trifoletti, but the Journal News reports that according to the mayor, the village has not yet decided its next step. We will keep you updated.
The developer proposing 2 multifamily buildings near Palmer Avenue overcame a major hurdle 2 weeks ago when 3 of 5 members of the Larchmont Zoning Board of Appeals agreed to grant the multiple variances he had requested. The proposal by Richard Esposito is opposed by residents in the neighboring Pine Brook residential area. But Zoning Board of Appeals members Noel Dennis, Harry Taranto, and David Chris think that the project's benefits outweigh the perceived disadvantages. On the other side, ZBA board members Liz Licio and Joan Gottesman object to the magnitude of the variances being sought. The developer is seeking 7 separate variances, including those for height, number of stories, number of dwelling units, amount of recreation space, and number of covered parking spaces. But the Zoning Board of Appeals decided to consider the project as a whole because Mr. Esposito told them that his project, which he first proposed in 2003, would be unfeasible unless all variances were approved. The ZBA now develops a resolution based on their deliberations, and then they adopt the resolution in a public vote, which will probably occur at their November 14th meeting. Eileen Gershbach, one of the most active community opponents, expressed her disappointment after the meeting. She told the Larchmont Gazette, quote, "It feels like a very small group of well-positioned people wanted this to happen, and there were many, many more who didn't," unquote. She added, quote, "The burdens will be borne by those just outside the neighborhood, as it was defined, and the burden on the schools will be borne by the entire community," unquote. If approved, Mr. Esposito's buildings will have 23 apartments in one building and 28 in another. The buildings will be 40 to 42 feet tall. ZBA Chairman Harry Taranto summed up the position of the 3 supporters, including himself, calling the project one of a kind that will not create dangerous precedents for the future. In weighing potential benefits to the developer and potential detriments to the community as required by the Zoning Board Code, he told the Gazette, Quote, "It's something that I think in total would be positive."
Westchester County Executive Andy Spano released his proposed 2008 capital budget of $105 million. That's a 5.9% increase in spending over last year's budget. Now, not included in the $105 million is the $50 million flood mitigation program announced shortly after the big April storm this year. Right now, that program falls in the under review section of the budget, while details are being finalized as to how the funds will be allocated. County Legislator Judy, who represents our community, confirmed this. She assured me that the money is there, it's just undesignated until the Flood Action Task Force, of which she's a member, finalizes the grant application for municipalities. Myers says they're almost there and says she will, and I quote, "fight tooth and nail to get this funding included in the capital budget," end quote. The capital budget must be approved by the legislators by December 15th, and of course, we'll be following the story and the money.
With more low-cost flights than ever before to Florida destinations, Westchester County Airport has morphed in the past 18 months from a tranquil departure point for Cincinnati-bound software salesmen to a bustling place where sunshine-seeking senior citizens, duffel-toting students, and families with loads of luggage jockey for space. At least that's how the Journal News described it in a recent story. The airport's airline passenger count is expected to soar to 1.65 million by the end of this year, up nearly 66% from last year. To keep travelers moving, airport manager Peter Scherer plans to hire 60 people this year and 42 more next year. They'll handle luggage, clean and fuel aircraft, and check in passengers, bringing the airport staff from 148 last year to 250. The airport also plans to buy equipment and renovate some back office and public spaces, spending about $4.1 million for people, construction, and equipment. Increased revenues from fueling, landing, concessions, and passenger fees are expected to pay for these changes. While the airport expects to handle just as many passengers next year, the Journal News reports this is probably the highest flying the airport can go. Its proximity to multi-million-dollar estates and pricey homes resulted in a terminal capacity agreement to limit growth. The agreement is between the airlines, the Federal Aviation Administration, and Westchester County, which owns the airport. It caps the number of arriving or departing passengers at 240 per half hour on a maximum of 4 planes. The airport's neighbors find aircraft noise a nuisance, and they worry about air and water pollution to the nearby Kensico Reservoir. What some residents forget, however, is that flights by major airlines are only about 25% of the total flights at the airport. The majority of flights are by private, corporate, or general aviation aircraft. And if the air is crowded, so is the terminal, with all the extra travelers and about 3,000 square feet of space taken up by the Transportation Security Administration. Here are a few of the changes the airport has already made. They've doubled the number of departure lounge seats, set up a private screening area to avoid using a restroom, and they've reinstituted curbside check-in, which had closed after the September 11th attacks. Next year, the airport plans to add a snack bar to the departure lounge. They'll renovate some bathrooms, and they'll enlarge the baggage sorting area.
Spirited discussion at the October 16th local summit meeting. The summit, as you may recall, is an informal community council that works to make the community a better place to live for everyone. The issue at hand was, well, spirits or alcohol and drug use by local teens. Village of Larchmont Mayor Liz Feld reportedly told the group that she believes the key cause of youth alcohol abuse in our community is permissive parents. Her comments were in response to a statement by Lori Brandon, who's the head of the Fields for Kids organization and is also a member of RADAR, which is Responsible Action Drug and Alcohol Resource. Brandon had said that this community needs more recreational facilities for teens to reduce the allure of miscreant behavior. Mayor Feld responded that no amount of recreational facilities would reduce substance abuse unless there was sufficient parental supervision. As an example, Feld said, you could provide teens with World Series tickets and you'd still have some coming back home to get stoned. Now, Mamaroneck School Superintendent Paul Freed provided an interesting anecdote about the pervasiveness of the drinking.
2 years ago, at the first Mamaroneck High School graduation he attended, graduating students were encouraged to leave on the auditorium podium a memento of their high school experience. Plastic red cups began appearing on the stage, and he later learned that the cups were mementos of student gatherings in the woods where $5 bought you a red plastic cup to drink from. Well, this discussion surely will continue, and if you're interested in joining the local summit, public meetings are held the third Tuesday of every month at 7:45 in the morning at the Nautilus Diner on Boston Post Road.
A few weeks ago on this program, we talked about the legal bills that Mamaroneck has been facing over the last few years. At the time, we could not provide exact numbers, as the village had not given the numbers to us in time for our news program. Since then, more detailed numbers have been released by the village and the Board of Trustees. According to these releases, the village has spent an estimated $7 million for the period starting 2002. In that year, Mamaroneck Village spent about $145,000 for legal fees. This year, the village has already spent $1.3 million. Mamaroneck was involved in a number of high-profile lawsuits during the last years, and it had to pay high attorney fees and also the expense for settlements of the cases. Village trustee Tom Murphy has suggested that the village should hire an in-house attorney. He was quoted in the Journal News saying, quote, "We are spending over $7 million in legal fees. This is unheard of for a village that has less than 20,000 people in it. This may cost a little money up front, but it could help us in the long run," end quote. The salary of a new village attorney has not been determined. Trustee Murphy thinks that the salary should be based on the job description and also the qualifications of the candidate. Should the village go ahead with hiring an in-house attorney, he or she will be appointed by the mayor and subject to the approval of the Board of Trustees. The topic was to be discussed further at the Board of Trustees' regular meeting on October 22nd.
And now Glenna Gray reports on a new health initiative to help immigrants.
A $20,000 grant from Westchester County has been given to the Larchmont Mamaroneck Resource Center. The grant is to be used to develop Health Friday. The health program will invite local health experts to hold seminars at the Workers' Center. The classes are to educate immigrants on different health conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, allergies, STD diseases, Lyme disease, and depression. An agency in Tarrytown and one in White Plains also received money. Mariana Boneo, the executive director of the Hispanic Resource Center, believes that healthcare workers need to reach out professionally to the Latin community. Ms. Boneo states, according to the Sound Shore Press, "We need to build bridges to the health disparities, and we must try to help the immigrants stay healthy." For Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News, I'm Glenna Gray.
Get educated about immigration. Mildred Lazare has the details.
Ever wonder how the debate over immigration affects our schools and children? The League of Women Voters of Larchmont Mamaroneck and the Village of Larchmont Library invites you to come and be a part of their discussion on immigration and education. This event is being held on Thursday, October 25th, 2007, from 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. at Larchmont Village Center, behind the Larchmont Library. This is the second discussion in a series of immigration forums in the League of Women Voters' study of U.S. immigration policy. Guests will include Joseph Berger, author and education columnist for the New York Times, Richard Berman, president of Manhattanville College, Dr. Paul Freed, Superintendent of Mamaroneck Public Schools, and Dr. Howard Smith, Superintendent of Tarrytown Public Schools. It is important that you come to the event and ask your questions in person. But in the event that you are unable to attend this discussion and have questions or comments that you would like the panel to consider as they prepare for a conversation, please forward them to Geraldine at fieldsburgess.com. That's Geraldine, Gerrilyn, at fieldsburgess.com. For Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News, I'm Mildred Lazare.
Should restaurants serve a side of nutritional information with the menu? Don Lewis asked your neighbors.
Westchester County is proposing mandatory calorie counts to be printed next to all items on fast food menus and as prominent as the price of the item. The proposal is based on two beliefs. The first is that people underestimate the calories they're eating when they don't have the numbers in front of them. And the second assumption is that people will eat fewer calories if they have enough information. Calorie amounts are listed on Dunkin' Donuts' website. You can ask for a copy of McDonald's calorie information in some of their stores, as well as the Subway chain of fast food restaurants. However, having a sign or chart mounted on the wall in a prominent position will surely help the customers to select their food items more carefully and be able to select more nutritionally better foods for them and their families. The proposal would require all restaurants that sell standardized food to display the calorie count right up there on their menu boards. I took a camera crew to some of the area's fast food spots. Here is what they said.
I don't know. I mean, I can't wait till they start it. I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea that, they take responsibility and they inform, they give the information to the customers about what they're about to eat in their restaurants.
Well, I think that's a very good proposal the Westchester County is trying to do. Because you get people coming in here and just eating like, for example, for the buffet, Monday to Friday, and you have people that will come in here and spend hours on the buffet just because it's $6.49. I spend like 2-3 hours on just one book. I spend hours. I eat it in. So if Westchester County passed that law, it's gonna help people watch the calories of what they eat.
I wouldn't read those labels or those menus or whatever.
Can you tell me why not?
I'm not interested.
I strongly suggest that they do it because it's very important that we see what we're buying, what calories are in the food, because America is basically run on overweight people, so it'll be very, I think, effective.
Well, it should be done because it will help people out and it'll be better for people's health.
I mean, it's a fantastic idea. It's a fantastic idea. And I know Quiznos is coming up with that program that they're going to put the calories next to the sandwiches.
I think it would benefit all people of all ages. People are very weight conscious now these days, and calories are an important part of everything you put in your mouth, whether it's liquid or solid.
I don't have an opinion on it because I've been dieting and I know it's all bad for you, so I don't buy it no matter what. So
you can find out what's happening at Mamaroneck High School. Our newest reporter, Ben Cruikshank, brings us up to date.
As we reported on the show 2 weeks ago, teachers in the Mamaroneck School District are presently working without a contract. In addition to wearing t-shirts with the words Teaching Excellence on them to show solidarity during the contract talks every Wednesday, Mamaroneck teachers have now decided to strictly follow the letter of the expired contract and are only willing to stay after school to help students until 3:30 p.m. In the past, teachers would often stay later, give help at lunch, or would come in early to help students. There's no word yet on the status of contract negotiations. A week and a half ago, the student body at MHS was informed that a parent who inadvertently parked her car in the senior class parking area had returned to find the car painted with the words Seniors 08 on the back window and Your kind is not accepted or wanted here on the front window. The parent, who is African American, was deeply upset. Although there is some question about whether the perpetrator knew the ethnicity of the car owner, it is clear that this type of action and language is unacceptable to the administration and the students at MHS. Principal Orfinger held a meeting with and wrote a letter to the senior class about the incident, and the senior parking lot was closed last Friday to make the seniors think hard about this type of incident. The senior who painted the car has come forward, and the administration has taken appropriate disciplinary action. On a lighter note, this week, the Performing Arts program at the high school, known by its acronym PACE, is putting on its fall play. This year's play is Our Town by Thornton Wilder, directed by John Fredrickson, and assistant directed by student directors Kathy Harwood and Kyle Moore. Performances will be held on Wednesday through Saturday in the Pace Theater at the high school, and tickets cost $5 each. The fall show is always a great event enjoyed by everyone. Finally, a record number of MHS students have qualified for the Area All-State Band and Orchestra this year. Rehearsals begin this Thursday, and the final all-day rehearsal and concert will be held November 8th. For Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News, I'm Ben Cruikshank.
Boarders may be bored no longer in Mamaroneck. Glenna Gray rolls this one in.
Some young people fed up with skating on village streets are asking the village of Mamaroneck to build a skate park. And so far, the Recreation and Parks Commission at least has given a thumbs up. The proposal still needs approval from Mayor Phil Trifoletti and the Board of Trustees. The Journal News reports that 15-year-old Blake Aragon and his friends are behind the idea, and that they have support from Doug Brown, owner of a new skate shop on Mamaroneck Avenue, who says he will finance the project. This week, Aragon, Brown, and other skaters planned to present their proposal to the village board. The proposal calls for constructing a skate park over 8 to 10 parking spots behind the sewage plant at Harbor Island Park. The skate park would not be permanent and could be easily removed should the village want it. Its supporters say so. Brown, who owns a store in Sleepy Hollow, says skaters don't like the designs of most skate parks in the area that have ramps and rails ordered from catalogs. Like Blake Aragon, he says skaters want parks that resemble normal city landscapes. No fences, no cookie-cutter obstacles, and no rules and regulations. Brown says he'll put his own money into the project and might find supporters and donors to help. He said he has helped build skate parks before and could build one here in a few months with volunteer help. Of course, safety and liability are the village's main concerns, but trustee Tony Fava, whose day job is running an insurance business, says the skate park should bring no new liability. Brown and skating enthusiasts blame the media for the concern about safety and liability, specifically the videos of skaters injuring themselves from botched tricks and stunts. According to Brown, skateboarding is no more dangerous than playing football, basketball, or other sports. For Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News, I'm Glenna Gray.
A new Court TV series is looking for homeowners to participate in a reality show about feuding neighbors. This according to a story in the Journal News. The show is called Neighbors 911, and its executive producer thinks our area is full of residents who would appeal to the show's target audience. Chris Northrup says he's looking for people who are living next to each other and own their own residence. Neighbors with conflicts that aren't really resolved by police or by the courts, says Northrup, is what he wants. Feuding neighbors who appear on the show would be compensated, regardless of how the host and arbiter decides each case. What, you might ask, is a source of conflict that might make for good TV? Well, noise, trash, property lines, and what they're calling crazy personalities. You know, in some cases, Neighbors 911 just may be an alternative to bitter arguments or expensive lawsuits. If you've got a dispute story, contact Liz Lewis Casting, and her telephone number is area code 212-645-1500. That's 212-645-1500. You can also reach her by email, and that address is Liz Lewis, Lizlewis, casting, one word, at gmail.com. Look for Neighbors 911 on television next year.
And here with the report on our local real estate is Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News reporter Glenna Gray.
Welcome to the Real Estate Corner. Here are the figures for the number of dwellings available in our community. Single-family homes, 105, priced from the mid-400s, and condominiums, 26, priced from the low 200s and to just under 800,000. Co-ops, there are 43 available, from the low hundreds to the upper 400s. Multifamily homes, there are 17 available, in price from the mid-400s to just over $1 million. For Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News, I'm Glenna. All of the facts and figures I got from Wycott Realtors in Larchmont.
And that's it for this week's edition of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News.
If you'd like to see this news program again, you can. It's on every weekday night at 7 p.m. We record one show each week, and it's replayed on this channel, 75, LMC-TV.
Or if you want to request to see it, you can. Call LMC-TV after 4 in the afternoon during the week at 381-2002, extension 202, and ask to see the news show. They'll try to put it on at a time that's convenient for you to watch.
And this reminder, our program is an all-volunteer effort, and we could sure use a few more volunteers, either behind the scenes or as a reporter. Or maybe you'd like to shoot some video. Whatever the case, we need you.
If you want to volunteer to help us put this program on, we've got something for you to do. Stop by some Thursday night in the LMC-TV studios and see how we do what we do.
And of course, the studios are located in the Mamaroneck High School, Palmer Avenue side, just up the stairs across from the landmark Walter's Hot Dog stand. We get things started around 7 p.m. and we'd love to see you here.
It's now easier than ever to reach us at the news show. We have a mail link on the LMC-TV website. You can email story ideas, pictures, or request a phone call. And of course, you can volunteer. Just go to the LMC-TV website, which is lmc-tv.org. Scroll down on the homepage until you see Contact the News Show. It's that simple. So let us hear from you.
Thanks again for watching Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. I'm Mike Witsch.
And I'm Maura Carlin. We'll see you next week. Welcome to a special edition of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. It's an election edition.
Tonight, you'll meet the candidates who are running contested in the town and the village of Mamaroneck.
Phyllis Whitner and David Fishman are running uncontested in the town of Mamaroneck for council seats.
And we start tonight's show with the two candidates who are running for Mamaroneck Village Trustee, Tony Fava for the Republicans and Randy Rumbedowitz for the Democrats.
If elected, what are your top 3 priorities?
I think the first one would be taxes, because everybody seems to be concerned about the cost of living here and the taxes. And the second would probably be the flood. I think flood mitigation is very important. And the third, I think that I would look at litigation costs and try how to reduce that and mitigate those costs.
Do you have any particular plans for those 3 and the flood mitigation? Let's start with that one.
Flood mitigation, I think that it isn't my plan specific. You know, we're going to deal with the different levels of government and the different plans that come to us from FEMA, as well as the County of Westchester and the State of New York. You know, we have our own thoughts, and I hope we can incorporate those into what the authorities come with in their sense.
Any plans on keeping taxes as reasonable as possible?
Well, taxes is always, that's always a form of the budget. And, while the mayor was in office, we had very, very small increases for the past 5-6 years in taxes, and I'd hope we can keep that course.
Okay. Well, you also mentioned litigation, so let me ask you a question about litigation. One of the big issues in this campaign has been litigation and its costs, whether it be legal fees or costs of settlement. There have been quite a number of litigations and not necessarily successful for the village. Do you have a plan of attack to deal with litigation, to minimize the risk of litigation and to minimize the costs?
Oh, absolutely. My experience, as I said before in previous interviews, I've been in the insurance business for 29 years. And my experience crosses the United States. I've worked in Los Angeles, in Denver, Colorado, down on John Street in New York City, as well as Westchester. I have a very in-depth understanding of negotiation and of compromise and how to get things settled. I've only been on the board a very short time, so I haven't really been able to participate as much as I would want to. But the plan always is to negotiate and to avoid lawsuits. Risk management is something that I'm very familiar with. When I was in Denver, I was a risk manager for one of the insurance companies there and worked in a chemical plant. And the purpose of what we did was to mitigate any exposure. So I would like to bring that to the board and try to help mitigate expenses by reducing risk and work with anyone I could on that.
Okay. Let's talk about a possibility of a way to reduce costs, not necessarily litigation costs. Intermunicipal cooperation. What are your feelings on that and any ideas?
Well, you know, when it comes to the flood, we have to have that. That's the only way it's going to work. You can't work within your own borders on flood mitigation because you have waters that are coming from other places. So that would be my first thought. And that would reduce costs by reducing the expense of anything that would happen by a flood. And then, you know, there's other things that we would probably explore. You know, the complicating factor with the Village of Mamaroneck is we straddle two towns, the town of Rye and the town of Mamaroneck. So whatever cooperation we would have to work with, we'd have to work on both sides.
Okay. Last question, your chance to tell the viewers something that you really want them to know.
Well, I think it's very important to have a diverse board and a board that isn't just made up of one particular political party or one particular philosophy. And I think that I bring diversity to the board. I bring a lot of knowledge. I have a lot of information that I could share with everyone in the Village of Mamaroneck, and I'd appreciate their vote.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Randy Rabinowitz, as a candidate for trustee in the Village of Mamaroneck, what would be your top priorities if elected?
Well, certainly Kathy Savold and I have already demonstrated our three crucial areas that we're interested in. First is controlling our litigation expenses. Second is controlling the flood mitigation. And the last one would be to also look at some other issues like taxes, which of course are very important. Now for myself personally, I have a couple of interests. Number one would be technology. My background is in technology, and I think there's so many things we could be doing to save money with taxes in terms of being more efficient by using technology. For instance, the other night I was speaking to one of the fire chiefs, and he told me there's so many things we could be doing for a safer Mamaroneck village that also involve technology. So I'm very interested in rolling up my sleeves on technology. And my other interest, I will tell you, is in recreation. So I really want to, you know, the whole fields for kids. Well, how about recreation? We were at the senior center today. Let's have more recreation for seniors. And I just think there's a lot more that the recreation department could do. I think they do a great job with limited resources, but I think we could give them some more resources to, you know, make our place not only a great place to live, but also a great place to have fun.
Okay, well, something not so fun is the litigation costs that the village has had in recent years. Is there anything that you can think of that would reduce the village's risk or reduce the costs in the future?
Well, here, you know, I didn't know this as a private citizen, but every year and for a 5-year term, we get to appoint this present board that starts in December. We get to appoint one member of the land use boards. This is so crucial because that person will be here for 5 years. So these decisions have to be done wisely. And I also hope that we stay in government for a while so we get a chance to replace some of these people. And I think we'll have less lawsuits when we have better people. And I appreciate the efforts of the volunteers, but it's time for some new people.
Do you have some suggestions for saving tax money by combining certain services with the village of Larchmont or the town of Mamaroneck or maybe even the town of Rye, since Rye Neck is part of the town of Rye? You know, shared municipal services.
Well, I've thought about this a lot because as a realtor, one of the things I have to do when I first meet somebody, explain to them how our system works, and they leave very confused. So it's a very confusing system, not only the towns as well as the school districts, which do not overlay any logical fashion. And then the city of Rye is like a separate entity within the town of Rye. What do I think we could do? I think we could do a lot, but it's a matter of people working together and not, you know, giving up what's their control. But I do think in maybe some areas that are, you know, not as vital services, but more services that are easily lend themselves, maybe seniors, maybe recreation. Some of the ancillary quality of life services, parks, we could maybe join together, and I would like to see that cooperation.
Okay, and finally and quickly, what would you like the voters to know when they go into the polls?
I think they should know that we're row A and E. We're working families and Democrats is our party lines, and that Kathy and I are going to be ready and able to do a significantly bang-up job. And this is the time, and if you look at the signs, I think people are ready for the change.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And now we turn to the two candidates running for mayor in the Village of Mamaroneck. Republican incumbent Phil Trifoletti and his Democratic challenger Kathy Savold. If reelected, what are your top 3 priorities?
I think the top 3 priorities facing everyone in the village are taxes, it's flooding, and also environment and quality of life.
Okay, well, let's start with environment and quality of life.
Environment and quality of life. You know that since I've been in office, we've opened the beach to swimming throughout the beach, not just inside the Gundaboom. I came into office, there were 400 people a year going on the beach. Now there's 12,000. I want to be around when I can say there's 24,000 going into the beach. And we need to keep on working on the water, on our rivers, making everything as pristine as possible. I just won the endorsement of the New York League of Conservation Voters because of the work that I did in the environment and pollution. Very proud of that, and I'm going to continue that work.
Okay, and your other water issue is the flooding.
Big issue.
Plans, ideas.
Okay, plans, ideas. You know, we were out in front of this pretty quickly. We had all the right people involved. We hired Leonard Jackson Associates to do hydraulic studies on our rivers. They're going to be back with that information sometime around the beginning of November. We also already did some dredging with FEMA and with the Habitat for the Humanities, Jim Caloran's folks. We're already starting to clean the riverbanks, but we need to put plans in place that go out a long period of time, not just plans that are being done now. We need to plan for the future. It's going to be a long process, but we have a flood committee in place. They're getting very active, going after all the information we need, like the Mayor's Water Quality Committee did for opening the beach. They're doing the same thing with the flooding, and it's really great to watch. It's good,
your last
good stuff.
one was taxes. What do you have? What are you referring to? What's your idea and plan?
Right. Taxes are what we hear no matter where we go. We've been lucky the last 5 years. We've kept tax increases down. We've been able to generate revenue, and we've been able to keep our expenses down, which is really good. Going out into the future, you know, we got to be really careful because right now, although you know the stock market may be up, it comes down, goes up, but a lot of people suffering in our village. And what we need to do is do everything we can to keep the taxes down. This past year, we gave some giveaways with some settlements of some court cases, which I was against. That's going to hurt us in the next tax year.
Okay, well, let's talk about litigation.
Yep.
One of the big issues has to do with keeping the costs, whether it's legal fees, settlements, and even the risks of litigation down.
Sure.
Do you have a plan or idea of how to minimize that?
Yeah, well, our litigation expenses last year came to about, over the last 6 years, came to about $4.3 million. We just this past board meeting agreed we would try to hire a full-time attorney for the village in an effort to keep litigation expenses down. The problem is that we live in a society where everything ends up in court, no matter what you do. How do we control that? That's a great issue. If somebody wants to sue you and they don't want to negotiate and settle, you're going to get to court.
Okay. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. I want to give you the opportunity on one last question.
Yep.
What do you want to say to viewers, to voters?
What I want to say to voters is this. We've had a great 6 years where I've been able to bring volunteers together to solve many, many, many problems. It was across all political parties. No matter where you live in the village, I took everyone in to solve problems. I'm going to continue that. That's the only way you're going to get the village to go ahead.
Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
Kathy Savold, as candidate for mayor of Mamaroneck Village, what would be your top 3 priorities if elected?
Well, Mike, first of all, to rein in our litigation costs. As I think most of the viewers know by now, over the past 6 years during my opponent's administration, we've racked up $7.4 million in legal expenses, which is just ridiculous for a village of our size. The second thing would be to develop a multifaceted, really a comprehensive flood mitigation program. That would also include a review of all of our land use ordinances, which would dovetail with my third priority, which is to do something about the overdevelopment. But to go back to the flood for a minute, we also need to really look at our land use and our introduce some environmental ordinances. We are about 10 years behind on some of our neighboring, from some of our neighboring municipalities, and this has to be a regional approach of controlling stormwater. So we need to have much better stormwater regulations put in place.
Is there a third priority? You mentioned litigation.
Well, litigation, flooding, and overdevelopment. You know, the flooding and the overdevelopment are very much related. We have over 320 new units coming into the village, and 85% of them are in flood-prone areas. So we need to have more open space. We need to have some land where water can be absorbed and not a lot of hard surfaces. It's called impervious surfaces, where water can run off into the storm drains. If the storm drains are kept clear, we need to maintain our storm drains better and create a flooding problem. And we need to work with our neighbors on this.
Well, going back to litigation, do you have any specific ideas about ways to contain those costs or minimize risk to the village in the future?
Well, there's several things we can do. As the viewers probably know, the Democrats on the board introduced an initiative to require the village attorney to be an employee of the village, as opposed to an outside attorney with political connection who is being paid by the hour. So right away, the conflict of interest from the attorney giving you the advice and the attorney who is financially benefiting from the advice goes away. So we will definitely be implementing that and looking for the best village attorney we can find. The second thing is to minimize our risk by making sure that we appoint well-qualified residents to the land use boards. People who are going to apply our zoning ordinances consistently and fairly. And work with the new building inspector to make sure that's happening in the building department as well, because most of our lawsuits right now are around decisions being made around zoning, planning, and other land use.
Well, another way to contain costs might be shared services with the village of Larchmont or the town of Mamaroneck, or even perhaps the town of Rye, since the Rye Neck area is part of the town of Rye. Are there any ideas that you have in that regard, sharing services?
Well, I have over 20 years experience in budget and finance, working for many large organizations, including the municipal hospital system in New York City, which is pretty big, and Columbia University. I worked at Columbia University Medical Center. I was the assistant vice president for financial planning, and I worked on budgets in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And when I was on the board in 2000, 2002, I introduced, we did zero-based budgeting, which means you look at every expense and you don't assume that because it's in the budget, it has to be in the budget. So I am open to any idea to reduce our expenses and to increase non-tax revenue. I think that the days of just taking the budget and increasing it by a certain percentage are over. Priorities shift. There may be some costs and some programs in the budget that aren't as important as things that we need to find new money to pay for flood mitigation expenses and things like that. So I think we've got a lot of work to do in the budget, and I'm really anxious to get going on it.
And last, what do you want the voters to know about you and when they go to the voting booth?
Well, I think that I'd like for the voters to know that I have the experience, the leadership skills, and the energy to tackle the tough problems in Mamaroneck, and I'm ready to go. So vote for me on November 6th.
Thank you very much, Kathy Savold.
Thank you, Mike.
And last, but certainly not least, the candidates running in the town of Mamaroneck for the supervisor position, Republican incumbent Valerie O'Keefe and her challenger, Democrat Ernie Odierna.
You've been town supervisor now since about 2000. What would you hope to accomplish in the next term that you haven't been able to do so far?
Well, what I'd like to do in the next term I have two things on my mind three things. One is I want to see that the apartment house, which will be built down on the Myrtle Boulevard, Madison Avenue site, Forest City, which we've been working on for 5 years, is initiated and done right. They are also supposed to build a parking deck on Myrtle Boulevard. I want to see, as part of the project, for people who don't live in the new apartment but in the neighborhood. I want to see that done right. I want to see a survey of the infrastructure in the town. It doesn't have much sex appeal, but we have to actually do it because the pipes are, some of them, 80 and 100 years old. Talk about flooding. You can talk about all kinds of jazzy stuff, but that's something that absolutely has to be done. And I'd also like to see that we continue on the road for flood prevention, and I'm lucky that I've been appointed by Democrat Andrew Spano to the Flood Mitigation Task Force for the Westchester County. I'm now the president of the Westchester Municipal Officials Association. I'm the vice president of the Westchester Putnam Supervisors Association. I'm the president of the Tri-Municipal Nassau Westchester, Suffolk County municipal officials. I'm at the top of my form now, and I think I can really help the town on the flooding issues and the infrastructure issues, and as far as more restriction on McMansions. So that's what I want to concentrate on. Then I'll be satisfied that I've done a good job on what I set out to do.
Okay, my next question, now you may have answered it,
Okay.
but if you haven't, your top 3 priorities if elected,
Well,
which aren't necessarily the
no,
same,
well, the
but
priorities
they could be.
are to keep the tax rate low as possible. Since I've been supervisor, the townwide tax rate has gone up 1.1%. That is the taxes charged to the 2 villages. I'm very proud of that. The second thing is we've kept the tax rate low in the town at an average of 4.5%. I gained and I have maintained Moody's AAA bond rating. So when we go out to borrow money, we borrow it at a much lower rate than we would otherwise. The AAA bond rating is only given to 1% of municipalities throughout the United States. So I think that our town is one of the best run, if not the best run towns in Westchester County. I want to keep it that way. So when I hand it over to the next person that comes along, it's really in good shape. Now, people don't realize that 3/4 of their taxes come from half to the school and 1/4 to the county. So I think we've had a very conservatively run fiscal operation, and I want to keep it that way. I also want to continue to work on playing fields.
Okay, that's 2, you get 1 more.
Okay. Well, I get playing fields and bringing people together. I think it's a moral obligation on the part of an elected official to try to bring different voices into the government and not to have little balkanized neighborhoods, and to work on the bigger projects like the flooding, the fields, and other things, community relations, as I like to try to be a mediator between groups in both the villages and the town, and not to try to set people apart by where they live or their ethnicity or where they came from.
Okay. So. Now you've been the sole Republican with
I think for 20 years almost. I think. I shouldn't say that. I don't think a Republican has been elected other than me in 20 years. Put it that way, or 24
Okay.
years.
Do you think there's an impact of having a Democrat versus a Republican as the supervisor with the council will be all Democrats.
I think it's very bad to have all one party, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. I don't believe in that. I don't think it's a good idea to have everybody in the same group and same social friends. There has to be some arm's length between them. I have worked very collegially, and I think we've been very productive as a town board since I've been the supervisor. But we put the politics at the door when we start to consider local issues. We're not discussing geopolitics. We're not discussing international affairs. We're not discussing very contentious, bioethical issues. We're concentrating on what we can do for this town, and I would hope that we did not revert to a one-party system. So if I'm reelected, you'll have a two-party system. If I'm reelected, my opponent, Ernie, will still be on the board, and you could still have him there and have me there. If I'm not elected, Ernie will become the supervisor, then an unknown person, I'm virtually certain, a Democrat, will be appointed to his empty seat. And you're going to have virtually nobody on there who's been in a contested election for a very long time. Because
Do you think that helps, having been in a contested
election?
election?
Yes, it makes you sharper. It makes you go out and talk to people. I'm glad I'm being contested this time. It makes you think. It makes you talk to more people.
You have to focus on issues.
You have to really focus on issues. Not that I didn't focus on issues, but I've been out on the street. One thing I can say, I have walked on every street in the town of Mamaroneck from Harbor Heights all the way to New Rochelle. Not this time around, but in each one of my election campaigns, I have gone out. So I think I know the neighborhoods better than anybody that served here for a very long time. We've got important elections in the village of Mamaroneck. I think this is a very important election in the town of Mamaroneck. And I think that I would ask the voters to consider me, give me another chance to sit in this seat and lead this town in a way it needs to be led. On quotidian, everyday issues are just as important as great big, fancy thoughts about the future. We have to plan ahead, but we also have to have that day-to-day work. And I work very, very hard. I work 7 days a week. And that's what I'd say to the voters. If you want somebody who really works hard, vote for me.
Okay, well, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Maura.
You've been a councilman since '99. What is it you think you can accomplish as supervisor that you haven't been able to do as a councilman?
I'd like to get more of the ideas that I have focused on. I'd like us to look at ways that we could really do something about flooding locally. We can't wait for the state or the federal government to do anything. There are ideas that I have that I think would make sense, like giving incentives to our residents so that they don't let the water flow into the storm sewers. That means retention on their property. That means pervious surface where impervious surface now lies. Maybe it means catch basins internally in their property. Maybe it means not cutting down trees. There's a whole bunch of stuff we can promote that we're not now doing.
Okay. If elected, what are your top 3 priorities?
To try to perhaps implement a jitney bus service, a no-cost, non-polluting jitney bus, so that we can get our residents, not just seniors, but all of our residents, around spots in town rather than drive a car. So we cut our carbon footprint. We make it easier for people to commute, to shop on Mamaroneck Avenue, to shop in Larchmont, to go to the bank, to go to the library, to get to our parks. Make it easier for people to get around and communicate.
Okay, that's 1.
That's 1. Oh, I'm sorry.
You get 3.
Okay, I get 3. Okay. I want to continue our effort to better communicate, both verbally. By that I mean in our new phone system. I would love to have a voice recognition and voice response system internally. I'd like to have a much better job on our website so that people can communicate 24 hours a day and be able to leave intelligent messages right from the website, and be able to also do visual communication like we've been finally starting to do after years of effort, to be able to put signs up where we're contemplating a change in zoning, and also open up our zoning board to have televised coverage like they do in the village of Mamaroneck.
Okay, and lastly?
Oh, well, you're keeping track. That's good.
Unless you consider
no.
we did talk about
flooding is a whole bunch of stuff in itself. Other than the recreation area, I would love us to have more multi-generational recreation. I'd love to have kayaking on the reservoir, and I'd love to have kayak access at the parks. For all of the town residents. And I'd love to have a teen center. That's 4. But there's a number of projects that I would like to see come to fruition, and the ideas raised by the supervisor tend to get more attention than those just raised by a council person.
Okay. Let's say you're elected. Well, after this election, we know that all the council people will be Democrats. What impact do you think it has to have either a Democrat or a Republican as the supervisor?
Well, I don't think just the term Democrat or Republican makes the difference. It's where the person's mind is at. And are they welcoming new ideas and innovation in government? We disagree often within the town Democrats. I probably have more disagreements with Phyllis than I do with Valerie. I mean, she's a sweetheart, but she's a good influence on me, because I'll go off into 16 different directions, and Phyllis or Valerie will say, well, hold on here. There may be, maybe we have to consider this or that, and it's a good influence. So when we pick the replacement for Valerie, we will try to pick someone who will complement us, and it might even be a Republican. I mean, we have entertained possible Republican candidates for vacancies on the council before.
You have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We're very outgoing. The Democratic Party, we knock ourselves out to be all-encompassing and to involve as many people as we can in the decision process.
Okay. Last question.
Sure.
What would you like to say to voters? So your last words.
My last words? Well, I personally love Valerie. So that's kind of a
that's
strange.
That's going to get quoted.
Yeah, that's fine. That's I think, an interesting thing. And life is too short, and our government is too important, and what we're trying to do for the town is too important to make artificial barriers between us. And so I think together we can move forward. I would love to have Valerie as part of a new administration, one way or the other. I think that we can do lots more. I have lots of ideas. People go over the hill at different speeds. Right now, I think I still have the energy and the enthusiasm for the job, and I'd like to be able to put it to good use while I still can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's it for this week's edition of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News.
Don't forget to vote on Tuesday, November 6th.
We hope tonight's show helped make your electoral decision.
Thanks again for watching Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. I'm Mike Witch.
And I'm Maura Carlin. We'll see you next week. Learn more about the superbug staph infection and how you can avoid getting it.
And what Mamaroneck schools are doing to keep students healthy.
Another lawsuit over the Larchmont Fire Department.
Honors for a local clergyman.
A new cable contract for our community.
And Habitat for Humanity events for you to join. Those stories and more coming up on this edition of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. I'm Spano.
And I'm Maura, Carlin. Our top story. As cases of so-called superbug staph infections have been reported in neighboring New Rochelle, we're devoting a good portion of this show to discussing the illness, especially how to prevent infection, how to recognize signs of it, and how it's treated. Also, learn what the Mamaroneck schools are doing to educate teachers, parents, and students and keep everyone healthy. First, what we're talking about are called community-associated methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. It's a mouthful, but broken down, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, or MRSA, or MRSA, refers to a type of bacteria that does not respond to traditional methicillin-based antibiotics like penicillin, which you probably have heard of. These are unfortunately a common cause of hospital-acquired infections. But the infections we're talking about are occurring in people who have not been hospitalized and have not had a medical procedure. Rather, this superbug is acquired in the community, thus the community-associated term. 9 student athletes and a coach at Iona College recently were diagnosed with the illness, as was a New Rochelle elementary school student. Dr. Jill Gresson, a local doctor who practices emergency medicine, spoke to me about how these infections are transmitted and prevented, including practical tips for your home. Thanks for joining me. Let's first talk about what you can do to keep, what the bug is and how you keep yourself safe from it.
Right. The bug methicillin-resistant Staph aureus
Right.
is not a MRSA is not a new bug. It's a strain of the staph bug which has been around forever. It's just making a lot more headlines in the news now because it's been seen and publicized in the community. But the best thing you can do to prevent the infection from spreading is good hygiene. Hand washing with soap and water. If you're not around a sink with soap and water, the antibacterial liquids that are alcohol-based are ideal.
So we should all be carrying these around
We
with
should
us.
be carrying them around in our pocketbooks and the kids' backpacks. And you know, after your kids are out playing at the playground and before they have their snack, rinse their hands, wipe their hands off, because it's something that you can try and avoid easily.
How is it transmitted? Is it through the air?
No,
Is it,
it's not an airborne infection. It's the most common type of transmission is from contact, either contact with an open sore or contact with a towel or a bandage that's come in contact with the infection. So if you're sharing towels and it was used to clean somebody who's got the MRSA bug on their skin, and you're then sharing the towels, picking up dirty Band-Aids, that's how it would come in contact. That's the most common transmission.
And if you're in contact with it, but then you wash with soap and water or an alcohol-based cleanser, you're okay?
That should be good enough. I mean, you want to be really careful if you've got cuts in your skin or an open sore, because that's going to put you more at risk.
Well, let's talk about some practical stuff in our homes and in our everyday lives. Many of us have cloth guest towels in our bathrooms for our friends, neighbors, kids. Should we get rid of them and put out paper towels right now?
With your kids, you can kind of supervise them washing their hands. You can't control everybody washing their hands the way you want everyone to be washing their hands. Until they can get the bacteria under control, it's not a bad idea to have disposable paper guest towels in your bathrooms.
Okay. And children, do we have to label, you know, sometimes a kid, for example, will grab the wrong towel, not necessarily theirs, siblings. Should we put their names on them to make sure that they don't touch anyone else's towel?
It's not a bad idea to have them not sharing towels. I mean, there's other infections that you want to be careful of too.
Okay.
And to try and help risk of transmission of other common infections like pink eye and the common cold. But it's good hygiene is a nice practice. So not sharing towels is a great way to start.
Okay.
But I wouldn't get hysterical.
Go nuts about it.
I wouldn't get hysterical. If one of your children or one of your family members has a cut, I would be really careful to make sure they have their own set of towels. They have their own set of soaps. And you want to make sure you're wiping down the surfaces that the kids that have frequent contact. So the top of the counter, the top of the sink, the faucets, the doorknobs that they may be coming in contact with that they're not so careful about disinfecting.
Okay. Now, kids get cuts and bruises all the time, and I assume you're not talking about a little scratch. You're talking about something that goes through with blood.
Anytime there's a break in the skin, there's a risk for bacteria to enter the body. So you really want to keep wounds covered. And a simple Band-Aid is enough. You don't need to wrap up the whole arm.
And you keep the Band-Aid on
until the skin's closed.
So it's not enough that it scabs over. You want to get rid of the whole thing?
The scab isn't a perfect airtight seal. Okay. It's a healing part of the body, and usually when scabs are formed, it's because there's skin that's healing underneath and it pushes the scab off.
Okay.
But it's not a bad practice habit to keep things covered until they're healed.
Okay, so let's take it a little more practical in the home. Little kids climb into bed with their parents, so they climb into bed with a sibling, or two brothers want to sleep, in the same bed. You're saying no?
No.
You're not saying no?
I'm not saying no.
Okay.
The CDC website has a lot of information, so that's a great place for people to start to look.
Do you happen to know
www.cdc.gov.
Okay.
And they have lots of links with frequently asked questions about things that you can do. And they'll also confirm that this is not a new bug, that it's been around since your mom was little, since you were little, and this is not a new thing to be dealing with. It's just, it's becoming much more prevalent now because of the media.
Okay, one more practical thing, as friends have raised this, they have two kids close in age. They bathe them together. No? Yes?
It's a hard line to say. If there's anything if there's cuts and you're worried about contaminated water, then I would definitely bathe them separately.
Okay.
But it's really important when cuts and bruises are getting more red and not getting better, that you seek medical attention. If it looks like a pus-forming abscess that's draining, you definitely need to seek medical attention.
Okay, and you want to just go back over?
Sure. The most common signs with areas of redness, it'll look like a red pustule, which is almost like a big pimple. And if it's draining, there may be
something coming out of it.
Something coming out of it, so it may look like white pus or some liquid that's draining out of it. The area around it would be red and tender and sometimes feel warm. And a cut that's not healing and getting better as opposed to getting bigger would be something to really look forward to and go to your doctor promptly.
But you don't need to rush to the doctor for every cut.
I would, if it's looking, keep it clean. And most of the time, the MRSA can be treated by cleaning the wounds and evacuating the bacteria. And if necessary, your doctor may want to do a blood culture or a wound culture and put you on some antibiotics.
Okay. Thank you very much
for
clearing
welcome.
This up for us.
You're very welcome.
Mamaroneck schools are taking actions to prevent the infection from hitting its school. Information is posted on the district website at mamaroneckschools.org, so MAMK schools.org. In the scrolling screen, you'll see information about MRSA and click on that. Also, the district mailed to all students' parents a letter describing its efforts and reminding people that the best prevention is, as we heard earlier, good hygiene, lots of hand washing and disinfection, covering cuts and scrapes and keeping them clean to minimize contact and not sharing personal items. In addition, the recommendations of the New York State Department of Health have been reviewed with all custodial staff, and soap and towels will be well stocked. School nurses are prepared to be proactive. The district is working with athletic coaches to make sure they and their athletes follow the health department guidelines.
Mamaroneck schools also are working with the district school physician, Dr. Ann Engeland, who spoke to me about school MRSA prevention. I'm hearing from people concerns about sending their children to school. Should they be concerned?
No.
Okay.
Let's start with, I think, the fact that our most recent concern about MRSA, it's been in the media all over the place, it would be hard to have missed it, is just, I would say, one in a string of things that we get excited about. It could be Lyme disease, it could be as simple as lice, it could be AIDS, it could be rabies. There have been, I would say about every year there's something that grabs attention. The good thing about all these things is that they're preventable and mostly treatable. And this is one more of those things. The schools are doing everything they can and that they should be doing to educate everyone about the issue of MRSA. and the schools are safe places. There are certain places in school where we pay more attention and are more concerned about the possibility that children will infect each other, and that really is within the athletic department.
Really, so in the classrooms themselves, there's really not risk?
No.
There's not, you can't catch it from sharing a desk or sharing pens or pencils or a sweater?
No. As long, MRSA is like other bacteria that are in the skin. It's transmitted by skin-to-skin contact or contact from skin to secretions of a wound. If a child has a sore or a boil or a pimple that may have staph infection in it, they should have that treated and covered. And they're fine to go to school as long as any wound like that is being taken care of and is covered. So it is not transmitted through the air or through talking or sitting close to each other or anything like that. So the general classroom situation is very safe.
Okay, so then we should take it to the athletic department, which you said is where the biggest concern is. What's the concern there, and how do you prevent it?
Well, the concern, at least in theory, is that if there's shared equipment or there's skin-to-skin contact in, say, between wrestlers or cheerleaders, or if people are sharing mats and someone is infected, there is the potential there for someone to contract an infection. It could be a virus, it could be bacterial, it could be MRSA, by this close kind of contact. But the school is doing everything it can, to educate athletes and others, coaches, parents, about how to maintain really good hygiene, to watch out for any signs of infection and get those treated and covered. And in terms of our equipment, we don't share equipment among athletes, and the mats and that sort of thing are all being taken care of according to state health department standards, just as they always have been. There's nothing being done differently except that we're more vigilant and careful, and everybody's being educated a little bit more carefully.
Well, let's talk about something like the mats, because it takes it into another setting. Also, a regular gym that, a gym club, athletic club.
Right.
Is there a concern of parts of your body that are covered, if that part's on the mat? So it's only uncovered skin on the mat.
Right.
Should you not use mats in public places?
I would say that's probably a good idea, unless they're being wiped down after every use.
Or is putting a towel over it sufficient?
That's fine too.
That is fine. And is that what kids do at school?
I'm not sure that they do, and in fact, they're not using very many mats right now. So it's really, we had a big meeting between all the administrators, the athletic staff, the custodial staff, and the feeling was that shared equipment and mats are really not an issue right now. That's not being done in the athletic department.
Because those sports aren't in season yet.
Exactly. And because we don't share equipment. Other than mats, there's no helmet sharing, shin guard sharing, any of that. So everything's pretty safe.
But let's just take it again to kids, but out of the schools, there is sharing in something like Little League. They share batting helmets. The kids, whether you know it or not, might share batting gloves or regular gloves or whatever other sport. Is that something we should tell our children not to do?
I think that probably helmets are not a great idea to be sharing. If it's possible, they should be wiped down in between.
Anyway.
Yes. But in addition to that, I think parents and coaches need to be alert to the fact that any kind of skin infection on any of their children or players is a potential problem. And I think if we do both of those things, if we're careful about our equipment and we're careful about any potential contagious person, then I think we're doing everything we can do, and I think that's really sufficient.
And that should be sufficient for contact sports, where they are crashing into each other.
Yes.
Okay. What about something like swimming? Homics has a swimming program.
Well, we have, the pool has rules. There are rules that say anybody with an open sore is not allowed to swim. So we hope that people respect that.
But if it's not respected?
If it's not respected, this particular infection is not transmitted through the water. Okay. So I wouldn't worry about that. Okay. I think, we need to be careful in the locker rooms. We don't share towels. I would wear flip-flops. I wouldn't go barefoot for a number of reasons. But MRSA is just one of those.
Okay. So what's your biggest advice to parents and people in general about keeping safe and the degree of worrying or not worrying one should do about this?
I would say it's hand washing.
Hand washing, simple as that.
It's pretty simple. It's hand washing with liquid soap in a public place. You can use a bar soap at home if you want to, but liquid soap in public places or alcohol-based cleaners are fine too. And it's frequent hand washing. You know, I probably wash my hands 60 times a day, and that's nuts, but you know, we need to think more carefully about coming home, washing our hands, washing before and after meals, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And I think that is a huge piece of it.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming
You're
in and
welcome.
clearing this up for us.
You're welcome.
More information is available from the Westchester County Health Department. Mike Witsch has the county's suggestions.
The county health department says that, like many healthy people, you probably have some staph bacteria on your skin or in your nose or throat. Most of the time, the bacteria cause no problems or relatively minor skin infections. But staph infections can become serious if the bacteria burrow deeper into your body. And bacteria in general are becoming more resistant to common antibiotics. Though most staph infections can still be successfully treated, unnecessary use of antibiotics can lead the bacteria to become resistant to other antibiotics as well. Staph infections, including MRSA, occur most frequently among persons in hospitals and healthcare facilities, like nursing homes or dialysis centers. Those people sometimes have weakened immune systems. But close skin-to-skin contact among high school wrestlers or football players, for example, also poses a risk of infection. The county health department has information on its website about how this bacteria is spread and what precautions you should be taking to avoid infection. The best way to prevent skin infections is to practice good hygiene. Keep your hands clean by frequently washing them thoroughly throughout the day with soap and water, or use an alcohol-based sanitizer. Keep cuts and scrapes clean and covered with a bandage until they're healed. Avoid contact with other people's wounds or bandages. And don't share personal items like towels or razors. Have any wound or abrasion that's not healing properly or looks unusual evaluated by a medical professional. And athletes, you should be careful not to share protective equipment and other items that can spread MRSA infections, such as clothing or uniforms or towels. And you should shower with soap as soon as possible after practices and competitions. In addition, sports equipment used by several team members should be regularly cleaned with a commercial disinfectant or a solution of diluted bleach. For more information, go to the internet. The county's website is westchestergov.com, and you'll find the health department page. For Larchmont-Mamaroneck Community News, I'm Mike Witsch.
In other news, a second lawsuit has been filed against the village of Larchmont challenging the appointment of a paid fire chief by the village board. The first lawsuit was won by the village, and it cost the village about $100,000 to defend its position. Initially, the fire department in Larchmont had been an all-volunteer operation, but earlier this year, the village board selected Richard Heine as a paid chief. This decision has always been defended by the village board, saying that the fire department had become too important and too large an operation that it was in need of a professional oversight. The budget of the department is about $2.5 million per year. At the time of the decision, 19 volunteer firefighters resigned. 9 of them filed a lawsuit against the village, which the village then won. The new lawsuit claims that the public in Larchmont has a right to vote on the issue of establishing a paid fire chief in the village. 7 residents have filed the lawsuit. Plaintiffs claim that the village abolished the volunteer fire department by its action taken earlier this year. Such an action under state law may be subject to a referendum when enough signatures in favor of such a referendum can be gathered. In June, 2 petitions were filed with the village clerk that apparently had 835 signatures each. And this number of signatures seems to fulfill the 20% margin that has to be obtained of all the voters in a district. 2 of the plaintiffs in this new lawsuit are former Village of Larchmont trustees, Ned Benton and Mike Wiener. The Board of Trustees and the village attorney are reviewing the matter. Village Attorney James Stout seems to be of the opinion that the matter that has been brought before the court is not a matter that may be the subject of a referendum.
Completion of the new Village of Mamaroneck Firehouse may be delayed, reports the Journal News. Initial tests of the concrete footing show some problems, and another round of tests is needed. Results are expected by November 10th. If the construction plans need to be changed, that may delay completion of the building, which is scheduled for August. But don't expect costs to increase. The contractor agreed to a fixed price, even if the concrete work needs to be redone. You may recall that the new firehouse has been on the agenda for the last decade before finally securing approval this year.
While the economy continues to grow, as indicated by data released by the U.S. Department of Commerce last week, Westchester saw a slight increase in the number of unemployment for the month of September. The unemployment rate rose by 0.1% to 3.7% during the last months. It was the first increase in the unemployment rate since November of 2005. The statewide unemployment rate also increased in September. It rose by 0.3% to 4.4%. Some areas continue to grow and offer jobs that need to be filled. Construction-related employment keeps growing, as do professional, scientific, and technical services, and also retail.
Is there a new cable television service in your future? Mike Witch broadcasts.
Cablevision will face big-time competition from Verizon. That is, if our 3 municipalities approve a contract with that company, something they're expected to do by the end of this month. Verizon calls its service Fios, F-I-O-S, short for fiber optic service. You've probably seen their ads in newspapers and on TV. Fios includes telephone, internet, and television. What's more, the proposed contract includes substantial support for our community television station. Jim Milstein, a Larchmont trustee and chief negotiator of the agreement, told the Journal News, quote, "Consumers are now going to have a choice. If one of these guys has a better product, it's going to get more customers." The other guy, of course, is Cablevision, the only cable TV provider here since 1980. Well, first it was UA Columbia, then it was sold to TCI, and then finally to Cablevision. The 3 communities will hold public hearings on the proposal before the boards vote on it individually. Mamaroneck Town will hold its hearing on Wednesday, November 7th, Mamaroneck Village on Tuesday, November 13th, and Larchmont the next day, November 14th. If they approve, and if the New York Public Services Commission approves, Verizon Fios could be available here as early as January. Cablevision continues to serve the communities despite the fact that its original contract expired more than a year ago. Negotiations to renew their franchise have been slow. According to the Journal News, the highlight of the 15-year deal with Verizon is the amount of money going to LMC-TV. The company has agreed to pay $445,000 over the next 3 years, in addition to a monthly payment to LMC of 75 cents for every subscriber in the area. And that will go for 10 years and then go to $1 per subscriber for the final 5 years. On top of these grants, Verizon will also pay the 5% of its revenue for franchise fees, as required by federal law. Cablevision, of course, also pays that 5% fee, but since their contract ended, they've stopped making payments to support LMC-TV. Cablevision spokesman Patrick McElroy told me in an email that his company is proud of its long history of service here, and they believe they offer more value and better service than competitors like Satellite, Broadcast, or Verizon. For their part, the municipalities hope to put both companies' agreements on par with each other. Reporting for Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News, I'm Mike Witch.
A local clergyman is honored. Details from Glenna Gray.
Bishop Wayne Powell of Straight Gate Church in Mamaroneck will be recognized for his forward thinking and courage for allowing the day laborers to gather at the church. He will be presented with the Amigo Award on November 8th at Hampshire Club. It will be presented by the Hispanic Resource Center. Wayne Powell is the 3rd-generation minister in his family. Wayne is a graduate of the Mamaroneck school system. While in high school, Wayne played different sports. He remembers Lil Caprice and Joseph Biscaglino as educators who saw his potential and encouraged him to continue his education. His undergraduate work was completed at Wabash College, and his graduate degree is from the College of New Rochelle. The Straight Gate Church has been an involved church for generations in the town of Mamaroneck. Next week, I hope to have him here so I can interview him. Thank you, Bishop Wayne Powell. For Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News, I'm Glenna Gray.
Will your restaurant dining experience come with a side order of nutritional information? Mike Witch updates us on pending county legislation.
Westchester County lawmakers recently took another step closer to passing a bill that requires chain restaurants to display calorie information about the food they serve. A public hearing is tentatively set for Monday, November 26th. Dr. Joshua Lipsman, Westchester's health commissioner, is pushing for the law as one way to help reduce obesity and help consumers to choose healthier diets. He told the lawmakers that the rule would apply only to chain restaurants because they have standardized menu items and ready access to calorie information from their parent companies. But Chuck Hunt, Executive Vice President of the New York State Restaurant Association, disagrees. He told the legislators that some franchise owners, like the fast food concessions in the Galleria Mall, would find it very difficult to comply with the law. They have too little space on their menu boards, he argued, to display all the information that the law would require. According to a story in the Journal News, Westchester's effort mirrors a similar battle taking place in New York City. In September, a federal judge struck down a similar regulation enacted by the city's Board of Health. The judge ruled that the city's regulation was preempted by the Federal Nutrition Labeling and Education Act of 1990. However, the city has submitted a new proposed regulation to their Board of Health that officials say addresses the judge's concerns. Westchester might wait to see whether it's enacted and if it's challenged in court before deciding whether to move forward with the county's proposed law. Reporting for Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News, I'm Mike Witch.
With a hammer and a wok, Glenna Gray explains how you can join Habitat for Humanity.
The Habitat for Humanity organization would like to invite you to the 3rd annual Thank You event at the Westchester Marriott in Tarrytown. Everyone will get a hammer at the event. Please RSVP. The telephone number is 914-636-8335. The Habitat organization is also preparing for their 20th anniversary next year. The Walk for Homes activity will take place this year, November 11th, 2007. This year's walk is particularly important to raise funds for the flood victims in our community. Please call for further information, 636-8335, extension 110. For Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News, I'm Glenna Gray.
And that's it for this week's edition of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News.
If you want to see this news show again, you can. It's on every weekday night at 7 p.m. We record one show each week and it's replayed on this channel, LMC-TV, channel 75.
Or if you want to request to see it, you can. Call LMC-TV after 4 in the afternoon during the week at 381-2002, extension 202, and ask to see the news show. They'll try to put it on at a time that's convenient for you to watch.
And this reminder, this news program is an all-volunteer effort, and we could use a few more volunteers, either behind the scenes or as a reporter. Or maybe you'd like to shoot video. Whatever the case, we need you.
In short, if you want to volunteer to help us put this program on, we have something for you to do. Stop by some Thursday night in the LMC-TV studios and see how we do what we do.
The LMC-TV studios are in the Mamaroneck High School, the Palmer Avenue site just up the stairs across from the landmark Walter's hot dog stand. And we get things started around 7 p.m. and we would love to see you.
It's now easier than ever to reach us at the news show. We have a mail link on the LMC-TV website. You can email story ideas, pictures, or request a phone call. And of course, you can volunteer. Just go to lmc-tv.org, scroll down on the homepage until you see Contact the News Show. It's that simple, so let us hear from you.
Thanks again for watching Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. I'm Sven Oehmer.
And I'm Maura Carlin. We'll see you next week.